What's going on, guys? My name's Chris. You're watching Raising the Bar. Today we're going to be talking about getting easily discouraged and how to eliminate that from happening to you. We've all been there. When you try something and it doesn't work out, and then you try it again, it doesn't work out again, and there's this constant negative reinforcement, and then you begin to withdraw and get discouraged because you feel as if what you're trying to accomplish just simply cannot be done. I want to rewind there. Now, when it comes to not succeeding or not accomplishing something that you set out to accomplish, we need to think about a few factors there. Clearly, the approach or the decisions that you made previously that led up to this point were not optimal, or else you wouldn't be in this position where you felt discouraged. That is a good thing, and that's what we need to latch onto here. When you set out to try to accomplish something and it doesn't work the first time, well, now we understand that that approach does not work for that particular situation. The next time that you go about trying that, you're in a different position because now you know it doesn't work, so you could try something else. And that's the beauty of those experiences, is there's learning to be had. We want to ensure that we can extract those learning moments from those failures, if you even want to call it that. But when it comes to getting discouraged, there's no room for getting discouraged because you simply haven't figured out what works yet. And the only way you're going to figure out what works is to go through those trials and tribulations in order to establish a framework or a methodology that works to achieve what it is you're looking to accomplish. That's the beauty of those situations that should be embraced. When something doesn't work out, there's nothing wrong with that. In order to achieve the ultimate level of gratification for accomplishment, there needs to be some troubles along the way, or else when you get there and it comes easy to you, it's not going to feel as good to you because it came so easy. Versus if it took you 10 years to accomplish something and then you finally did it, just imagine the level of gratitude and appreciation you would have for that thing that you were working on for 10 years. We can't sit down and get easily discouraged when things don't go our way. And I understand that where we live right now, there's instant gratification in this time for the majority of things. But that's not always the case. When we think about setting a goal for ourselves and going out and trying to accomplish it, hopefully that goal isn't something tiny, because then you're not going to feel that gratifying feeling of accomplishment. For instance, if I told you to go to the store and pick up a gallon of milk, and when you came back to the house, how would you feel? Would you feel accomplished? Would you be like, yeah, I just got a gallon of milk, I feel good about myself? Absolutely not. And why is that? The reason is because it's so readily available. It's so abundant and accessible that there's no barrier to entry to getting that gallon of milk. So it seems infinitesimal in the grand picture of your life because of how simple it was. Same thing can be said for a new business venture, trying out a new job, interviewing, trying to get a girlfriend or a boyfriend. The same thing applies. If you put a lot of work in and then reap the rewards later, there's a greater sense of appreciation for what you accomplished because there was scarcity involved along the way. So you can latch on to that knowing that you worked for it, you succeeded, and you were able to accomplish it. When I was a kid, I used to play a lot of video games. It was very different back then. When I had a video game as a kid, man, I was very fortunate to have that video game, for one. But two, I didn't have a lot of games and I couldn't get more games. So I only had one choice. When it came to playing that game, if I got stuck at a particular level or a particular place, what was I going to do? I didn't have an option. I had to keep playing and trying over and over and over and over. And then ultimately you progress through the game. Now, I'm not going to say that I did that with every game because some are extremely difficult. And yeah, I gave up. I'll tell you, I gave up. But what I'm finding is, especially with the youth right now, there's so much instant gratification that takes place and accessibility to alternatives that the drive to persevere through those difficult levels is gone. For instance, you give a game to a child, let's say between 6 to 10 years old, they will play that game, and if they lose a couple times, they're done. They don't even want to try it anymore. Same thing with sports. You see this a lot, where a child will get into a sporting event, let's say baseball, and they don't do good at baseball, so they never want to play baseball again. Not understanding the fact that it takes years of development, training, course correction in order to excel at a particular thing. The same can be applied to you. In order to get to the next level in your life, And in order to progress and get closer and closer to where you want to be, there's going to be setbacks. That doesn't mean that you should get discouraged or give up. That's the worst case scenario, is you give up. Because if you give up, then you can truly fail. If you never give up, you can never fail. It's a fun fact. Now, some people will utilize failure, or the word fail as an acronym. First attempt in learning. Now, you could look at it that way. I don't like to look at it that way because there's multiple times where that's going to happen. But consider that acronym for a moment. First attempt in learning. Well, that's exactly what it is, isn't it? When you try something that doesn't work out, then you just learned that that approach did not work for that particular goal. We got to think about this when we're going through our day-to-day and times get tough. Because I hate to break it to you, things are going to get worse before they get better. That's usually how life works. So when the old saying, when it rains, it pours. Well, it's very true. Very true here. In order for us to make sure that we're on the right track and we're sticking with something, we can't get discouraged along the way. I will give you a prime example. This particular YouTube channel that you're watching, I've been putting out videos for a few months, and the view counts and the subscribers aren't where I want them to be, but there's nothing wrong with that. That is completely okay, because that's part of the process. The odds of putting up a video or putting up a picture or starting a business and being an overnight success is so unrealistic it's not even funny. And if you want to humble yourself, go back and look at some of these early influencers, authors, speakers, business professionals, and take a look at where they came from. And also look at how long it took them to get to where they are. Oftentimes in our lives, we're exposed to the highlight reel of the end, quote unquote, end game, right? The person driving the Lamborghini, but we don't see anything that led up to that. That is the moment that's going to make or break you when it comes to getting to where you want to be. Had that person given up along the way, they wouldn't have those rewards later on in life. And the same thing applies to you. And regardless of what the venture happens to be, you got to think about this and remember it. It is so important not to give up and not to get discouraged, even when times are extremely difficult. And I know how easy it is and how frustrating it can be at times when things just aren't working out. But my best advice, keep going. Don't get discouraged. When something doesn't work out, or you're in a position where you want to change, well, you have two options. You can get discouraged and give up, or you can choose to get determined. Determined to achieve that, to make the necessary changes, to change yourself as a person, your thought process, how you conduct yourself in order to get to that point. But the only way that you're going to be able to figure out what changes you need to make are through those quote unquote failures, in order for you to understand what works and what doesn't work. And that is part of the success path. It is not linear. It is highs and lows. You're going to hear me say this a lot on the channel, where you think things are going good and then it falls off. You're sitting there questioning yourself, your abilities. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to keep going. You have to keep trying. Try again, and keep going. Because eventually, statistically speaking, if you stick with something long enough, not only are you going to get better at it, but your likelihood of succeeding goes up as time goes on. It's very important to remember this as you're going into something new. Let's take, for instance, you want to get a job. You're fresh out of college, or maybe you're in the middle of your career and you want to transition. You go out, you apply for various positions, you interview with companies, and nobody wants to hire you. Why is that? Why does nobody want to hire you? Well, clearly there's a reason, right? Perhaps maybe you're not qualified. Let's say you are qualified though and you still don't get the job. Well, now we need to look intrinsically and figure out what our values are that we're putting out in that interview that are leading them to believe that we are not the correct person for that role. And the best way to go about doing that is to analyze yourself. Sometimes when we talk, we can't understand how we're being perceived. We think we're saying this and it's being perceived the way that we intend it, but sometimes it's not being received that way on the other end. A great way to avoid this is actually recording yourself. Leave yourself a voicemail. Look up an interview question. Leave yourself a voicemail with your response to that interview question. Give it an hour and then listen to that voicemail back again and see how you sound. That's the practice. You go into an interview, you get asked this question, you figure it out, all right, maybe I didn't answer it correctly. Should I have done this differently? Should I do this? Well, guess what? Due to all of the opportunities out there, you can pivot and change and adjust, and eventually you're going to find something that sticks for you. There is no finite solution to this, by the way, as far as the interview process goes, but it is a matter of learning, figuring out what works, figuring out what doesn't, doing your research, doing your preparation, in order to ensure that when you walk in there, you can walk in confidently and have everything dialed in so you know exactly what your game plan is moving forward. And that is the exact same thing that you could apply to various other aspects of your life. When you want to accomplish something, great. Figure out a game plan, put it together, stick to the plan, and then make the adjustments as time goes on. Don't sit back, get discouraged, and God, please do not give up on your goals, because if you put your mind to it and you put the time and work into it, I promise you that you can be successful. You just have to ride the waves, deal through the tough times, and ultimately reap the rewards later down the line. Thank you so much for listening, guys. My name's Chris. Feel free to visit my website, RTBTransformations.com. Please comment, like, and subscribe on the video if you liked it. And with that, I will see you at the next one. I'm out of here.